Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to look at the FAQ from the new Rebel Clash expansion. The lovely folks over at Pokegym.net have published the official FAQ, that is the official list of new rulings. So let's have a look. These are important rulings, and they are ones you need to know if you're going to be playing tournaments with Rebel Clash. And yes, I know that Rebel Clash is coming out in a time where tournaments are off, tournaments are going to start up again, and we need to be ready. So starting off then with Cinderace V and its Field Runner ability. This is the ability that says, if a stadium in play, this Pokemon has no retreat cost. But how does this work with Galar Mine? Now, Galar Mine, of course, is a new stadium that increases the retreat cost of all Pokemon in play by 2. How does that work with Cinderace? Does it have free retreats? And the answer is yes. When effects that increase something like retreat cost by a particular amount are stacked on top of effects that make something like retreat cost vanish, the vanishing effect takes priority. Essentially what happens is this. Cinderace comes around with a natural retreat cost of 2. Galar Mine would make that retreat cost 4, but Cinderace V's ability just takes away retreat cost. It takes away the retreat cost of 4. Nice. Falinks' Iron Defense Formation, and I've made no secret of the fact that Falinks and Falinks V are my favourite cards from the set. So Falinks V then has the ability Iron Defense Formation. All of your Pokemon that have Falinks in their name take 20 less damage from your opponent's attack. And the big question, of course, do I get to count any Falinks V I have in play too? Yes. And the key point here is, it does not say Pokemon named Falinks or Pokemon named Falinks V. It says Pokemon with Falinks in their name. So that includes Falinks and it includes Falinks V. Both of them do have Falinks in their name, so both of them get the benefit of the ability. How lovely. We also need to take a quick chat about Hatterene and its Mind Hat ability. Now this is, and I really like this ability, I've made no secret of that here. Once during your turn, each player discards a card from their hand. Your opponent discards first, though it is an optional ability, you don't have to do it. Can you use it if you don't have any cards in your hand? And can you use it if your opponent doesn't have any cards in their hand? And the answer is yes. As long as either player has a card in their hand, you can use Mind Hat. If neither player has a card in their hand, you actually can't, because then you'd be playing it for no effect. The general rule in Pokemon is you do as much as you can. If you can discard but your opponent can't, fine. If you can't but your opponent can, fine. But if neither of you can, then you're using an ability for no effect. It doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen. Now, one of the coolest new abilities in Rebel Clash is Top Entry, and it's the same ability we see on Lampent, Lombre, and Luxio. I have no idea why it only appears on Pokemon with a name beginning with L. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense to me, but it doesn't really matter. It reads, I think it's just a coincidence, just to be clear. Once during your turn, if you drew this Pokemon from your deck at the beginning of your turn and your bench isn't full, before you put it into your hand, you may put it onto your bench. Or to put it simply, if you drew it as your card at the beginning of your turn, as opposed to drawing it when you play something like a welder, you may just put it straight down onto your bench as if it were a basic Pokemon. That's a good thing. Although it doesn't count as a basic, it's still a stage 1. The question is, if you draw it during your first turn of the game, can you put it onto your bench right away? And the answer is yes, but it must be before it goes into your hand. A lot of people are slightly worried about what's going to happen in terms of people trying to cheat with this ability, but as soon as it goes into your hand, you lose the option to use it. So if you're playing anything with top entry, please be very careful that you draw it and it never goes into your hand. But yes, you can use it on your first turn of the game. Fun little side note here, if you do this with Lampant, you can draw this as your first turn card, play it straight onto the bench, and then use Duststone to get a legitimate turn 1 stage 2 Pokemon. That would totally work. If I have a Pokemon with the top entry ability in my starting hand at the beginning of the game, can I put it onto my bench? No. In order to use top entry, it must be drawn from your deck at the beginning of your turn. While you're setting up, your turn hasn't started. You're not drawing it at the beginning of your turn. That is only that one card you draw right before you start your turn. So there are all the abilities we need to talk about, but there are a few attacks we need to have a chat about as well. Starting off with Dragoff, that we see with both Nidoking and Malamar V. Though to be clear, Nidoking was from Team Up, Malamar V is the new card that has it here. And we see this on the FAQs when a new card comes out with the same attack, essentially, we get let's just say a reminder in the FAQ. So Dragoff for 1 Darkness, 1 Colorless Energy, lets you switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active, and then do 30 damage to the new active Pokemon. Nidoking's attack was similar, it was for 2 Colorless Energy, and it did 50 damage to the new active Pokemon, but other than that, we're talking the same thing. If my opponent has no bench, do I do 30 damage to their active Pokemon with Malamar V's Dragoff? No. Because Malamar V says that you switch one of your opponent's bench with their active, and you do 30 to the new active Pokemon. If your opponent has no bench, you've not dragged anything up, there is no new active Pokemon, just the original active, and so you don't get to do the 30 damage. Moving over into Bronzong, we need to have a chat about Gyro Ball. 1 metal, 2 colorless energy, 70 damage, and you switch with one of your bench. If you do, your opponent switches their active with one of their bench. What happens if I use Bronzong's Gyro Ball, but I don't have any bench Pokemon? Now, it's not going to be very often that Bronzong is your only Pokemon and it's active, but you never know what's going to happen in the future. Well, assuming this happens, you have to switch Bronzong if you can. The if you do refers to when you have no bench Pokemon. So if Bronzong doesn't switch, your opponent's active doesn't either. I.e., it is not a you may, it is a switch this Pokemon. You have to switch. The reason why it says if you do is saying that if you don't switch to the bench, neither does your opponent. Ninetales Shapeshifter. This is the attack we see on the new Ninetales coming around in Rebel Clash. Or should I say, Ninetales V. 1 fire, 2 colorless energy. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attack and use it as this attack. Okay. The question is, do I need to have the correct amount and type of energy that match the opponent's active Pokemon's attack? Do you need the requisite energy? No. You can use any attack for a fire and a double colorless energy. Now, I did say this at the time, the rule essentially is that if you need the requisite energy, it will tell you. So if you look at something like Mewtwo and Mew GX as an example, it does specifically say you still need the necessary energy to use this attack. Now, there has actually been a ruling over in Japan about how this interacts with tag team GX attacks, like for instance Arceus and Dialga's Altered Creation. Altered Creation for 1 metal energy does 30 damage on all of your attacks for the rest of the game, and if you've also got a water energy attached, then you take an extra prize every time you take a KO for the rest of the game. The way this works with Ninetales V, and this was an official ruling which came down in Japan, so assume that it works that way over here, though I've not seen an official ruling, you have to have the fire double colourless in order to use the GX attack, i.e. to do an extra 30 damage of all of your attacks, but you're copying the attack, and you're also copying the, if you've got a water energy attached, take an extra prize every time you take a KO. So, fire double colourless, you get to do an extra 30 for the rest of the game. Fire water double colourless, you get to do an extra 30 and take an extra prize for the rest of the game. And like I've said, that is an official ruling which has come down in Japan. Now, this one should seem fairly familiar. Falinks' team attack, we're going to be going to a very similar thing to what we said a moment ago. Falinks' team attack does 30 damage for each of your bench Pokemon that has Falinks in its name. Does that include Falinks V? Yes. And it's the exact same thing we said with Falinks V's ability. Pokemon with Falinks in their name refers to Falinks and Falinks V, and theoretically Falinks GX, Falinks EX, Falinks Prism Star. I know none of them exist, but theoretically they would count. So yes, you can use Falinks V to do more damage with Falinks' team attack. Lovely. Now, moving over into trainer cards, we do have a ruling about Galar Mine, but it's the Galar Mine Cinderace ruling we've already talked about, so we can skip over that one. Scoop Up Net. Scoop Up Net is, for my money, one of the best and will be one of the most impactful cards in the entire set. It lets you put one of your Pokemon that isn't a Pokemon V or a Pokemon GX into your hand, discarding all attached cards. Well, do you put all Pokemon stages into your hand, or just the basic, or just the higher stage? You put all the Pokemon cards into your hand, including all stages if applicable. Obviously, if it's a basic, you've only got the one Pokemon to put into your hand. If you've used a rare candy to evolve into a stage 2, you don't have a stage 1. Attached cards refers to energy and Pokemon tools. Previous evolutions are not attached cards, and this would be very important for something like Galarian Obstagoon, where you do want to get Obstagoon back so you can play it down and drop free damage counters when you evolve, but you'll also want the Zigzagoon back so you can play it down and drop a damage counter when you play it down. And then finally, Sonia. Very nice new supporter card. And it reads, search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon or up to 2 basic energy cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Can you use it to get 1 basic Pokemon and 1 basic energy? No. And this is the classic read the card ruling. You either search for 2 basic Pokemon, or you search for 2 basic energy. You cannot search for 1 of each. If you want to search for 1 of each, might I suggest you go back in time and play Roseanne's Research that lets you search for up to 2 in any combination of basic Pokemon and basic energy cards. This is an updated version of Roseanne's Research, but it has been reworded. Roseanne's Research said up to 2 in any combination of basic Pokemon and basic energy, whereas Sonia says up to 2 basic Pokemon or up to 2 basic energy. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that's just the way it goes. So there we go. Shout out once again to the lovely folks over at Pokegym.net for publishing the official FAQ. I would like a confirmation of the Ninetales ruling, but we don't really need a confirmation of the Ninetales ruling. Remember, Ninetales copies the attack, and Tag Team GX attacks say, if you have this attached as well. So we don't really need any confirmation, because it says it in the attack. I'm just a stickler for pedantry. So there's all the new rulings, ladies and gentlemen, but I would very much like to know what you think about these rulings, and I'd like to know if you've got any lingering questions from any of the cards from Rebel Clash. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice, and then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/TheWasi. patreon.com/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, or you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but don't worry, they're still awesome. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.